Hello, this is Nathan with SoundScape Hearing Aids, and today we're going to look at a hearing test, and I'm going to explain what it all means. I've met a lot of people who, when we go over their hearing test, they've told us that nobody's ever explained it to them before, which is sad that people aren't telling them what their hearing test actually means. So we're going to do that for you, and hopefully make it a little easier to understand what all is done when we test somebody's hearing. Okay, the first thing we do is we start with a pure tone test, where the testing the ability to hear different tones. Across the top, we have tones. We go from low to high, and then on the side we have the volume. We go from soft sounds and we go to loud as we go down. Okay? Now, this is set to human perception of hearing. What that means is that 0 decibels is not the absence of sound. 0 decibels is the standard of good hearing. This is 0 decibels hearing level, not decibels sound pressure level. There's a difference there. So hearing level is based on human perception. Now, the range normal is -10 to 25. And we go through each one of these tones and we measure how loud does that tone have to be for you to hear it 50% of the time. You don't have to hear it every time, just 50% of the time. That's your threshold. That's when you start to hear that sound. Okay, now like I said, a person with good hearing can hear every one of those tones at 0 decibels. Now what I'm doing is I'm just showing what a very typical hearing loss looks like, where a person can have normal hearing in the low frequencies. And as I said, normal is -10 to 25. That is the range of normal. As long as a person hears within that range, they're considered to have normal hearing. Okay, so a lot of people have normal hearing in the lows, and they get the highs, and it drops all the way down, even to a severe loss. First, we do a tone test for air conduction, and then we do a tone test for bone conduction. Bone conduction sends that signal straight into the inner ear. So if there's a difference between bone conduction and air conduction, like we see here in this example, that would mean there's a conductive hearing loss. So the inner ear can hear much better than the ear is hearing when it goes through the normal channel of the eardrum through the middle ear into the inner ear. Okay, so if there's a gap there, that's a conductive loss. The sound is not being conducted into the inner ear correctly. Now, most people's hearing loss is what is called a sensory neural hearing loss. That is damage to the inner ear, nerve damage to the inner ear. Okay, the next thing we do is a uncomfortable hearing level. So we're going to slowly raise the volume to a point where that sound gets uncomfortable. We don't want it so loud that it's hurting your ears. We want to know, when does it start to get uncomfortable? Now, the difference between your threshold and your uncomfortable level is your dynamic range. We need to be able to fit the sound, the amplification in between that dynamic range. Loud enough that you can hear it, but not so loud it's uncomfortable. But you can see out here where there's the more damage, that dynamic range is much smaller. So it's more difficult to amplify that into that range without over-amplifying it. Okay, now we're done with pure tones. We go to speech testing. Now the first thing we do is what's called the speech reception threshold. Now we can do all these speech tests in the individual right or the left ear, or we can do it both ears together, which is called binaural. Okay, the speech reception threshold, we're going to play some 2-syllable words, and then you just repeat back what you hear. And then we turn the volume down as far as we can at the volume that you can still repeat those words, those 2-syllable words, better than 50% of the time, 50% of the time or better, I should say. That is your speech reception threshold. That's when you start to understand speech. Now, a person with good hearing can get down to 10 or even 5 decibels on the speech reception threshold. Average speech is 35 to 55 decibels. So quite often we see people who have hearing losses that they're only getting down to 25 decibels or even 35 or even 45 decibels, which means at a normal volume or at 25 decibels, that's, somebody's talking quietly. They're not even understanding half of those words. Okay, then we go to what is called most comfortable level. So I'm measuring, or I'm playing a sentence, and then I'm turning the volume up, and I'm asking, okay, what's a more comfortable volume? Not just that you can hear it, not just that you can understand it, but if you're watching the TV or you were listening to the radio, you would set the volume to that level. Okay, it's comfortable. You don't have to strain. You don't have to work at understanding. It's just easy to understand. Then we go to speech understanding. We play single syllable words, and we measure them at a comfortable level, and we see how many you get correct. Okay. A person with good hearing, a person who is understanding speech well, functioning at a normal level, is going to understand 98%, 100% of the words correctly at a comfortable volume. If a person's having trouble understanding the words, even at a comfortable volume, then they're having trouble with speech understanding. And hearing is not just about hearing tones. This is the least important thing. We're not just trying to get you to hear tones better. We want you to understand speech better. Now, some people, no matter how high you turn the volume, they don't understand speech because the brain is not processing. The brain is not understanding it. It's not just about hearing the sounds. It's about the brain understanding the sounds. But if we can turn the volume up and a person is understanding, even at amplified volume, they're understanding the words, that's a good sign. And that means they're going to do well with hearing aids. Now we look here, we see these letters. That represents average tone and average volume of the different letters. And you can see if a person had this loss, those letters there, they're not hearing them at all. And then these letters right here, those are right on the edge. So if a person has a little higher voice, those are going to shift up into the range where they don't hear them at all. A little lower voice, those shift down into range where they can hear them better. They're still going to miss those sounds, but they're going to get a little bit more of these mid-range consonant sounds. Now, all vowel sounds are low frequency, but most consonants are mid to high frequency. And it's those consonants that are the most important for understanding speech, the clarity of the words to understand the words. Okay, and that's the main concern most people have, is understanding speech. Most people can still hear somebody talk, especially in a quiet one-on-one environment. They still can hear people. They can still understand a lot of the words, but especially they get into a more difficult situation. There's background noise. What am I doing here? Okay, there's background noise. There's background noise. There's a bunch of people talking at once, and then they are going to start to have all kinds of problems understanding those words. Now, some people have a more flat loss, like I'm putting on here, and you can see if a person had this loss, they wouldn't hear any of these sounds unless a person was yelling at them. They're not going to even hear those sounds at all. A person would have to talk really loud. Even then, they're only going to get the vowel sounds up into a range, or possibly get the vowel sounds up into a range that they can even hear that they're talking. But those consonant sounds, those are very difficult to make loud, or nearly impossible. An S or a T, there's only so loud you can make that. So even if you yell, that S or T is not going to get that loud. That's why opera music has so many vowels in it, not a lot of consonants. You can really belt that out. You can't really belt a consonant out, no matter how good your projection is. So that's it, and hopefully that helps explain the test and helps you better understand, if you have been tested, what it all means, or if you're interested in being tested, what we're going to do, and what kinds of things we're going to look at to determine not just what sounds you hear, but how you function with speech, how you understand speech. That's the most important thing, is how you function and how you understand speech, because we want to get you to hear as close to normal hearing as possible. We want you to function as close to the way a person with normal hearing functions. That's our goal. Thank you.